Alobar, how are you keeping, mate?
Loud and clear, brother. Good to see you today.
No, listen, it's great to get you on. I've been looking to get an exorcist on for some time now. It's very hard to get you guys to speak. I suppose where we'll start off with this is the beginning, where you're from, your early life, and sort of what brought you up to this moment.
Oh, you know, a lot of the things that you don't want to happen to kids happen to me, and and that was rough, and I'll just brush over that. It starts to get relevant and interesting after I joined Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was in that club for for a good few years, and and they gave me the big hat of secretary of the board, central service office secretary, which is it's the big hat to wear in a region, um, and and I had access to anyway. And I had access to all these guys who've been sober for 10 years or so, and none of them seemed to know what we were really fighting. Um, but of the 12 steps, 6 of them mentioned the big G God, and so I went out shopping for a God. And the Christians, they didn't have it. I went to the old school church and they couldn't help me. I went to the newer happy clappy style and they weren't much good either. I said to them, look, so what's your program? They said, find Jesus. I go, great. So I want a mentor, I want lessons, I want a step-by-step approach. I want me to walk me through how I pray and get Jesus. And nobody had ever asked them that before. And nobody, and so they just sort of, the answer was sort of, and so I got out of there. The Buddhists, I hung out with the Buddhists for a while, and they do have some good stuff, but you have to hang around for 5 or 10 years and get ready to put on the orange robe, or they're not interested. You know? Well, they're not going to show you the good stuff. What happened there? Oh, okay, that's my computer timing out.
No, you're fine. It looks good in my end here.
I'm just as handsome as I've always been.
Do you know the thing about it is, Alobar, right? Just to react to that, a lot of people, when it comes to religion, my personal view, I'm not saying this is the truth. I believe that, if you look at Christianity, Catholicism, it's based on faith. If you look at Buddhism, it's based on longevity. So, the longevity of waiting that
Yeah.
10 years to get that orange robe. With
Yep.
other religions, it's different. But I spoke about this before on Facebook to you, and I said that I do believe that religion, or maybe it wasn't you, maybe it was somebody else, and I said that religion, it's all different avenues leading to the same source. That's how I feel about it. I feel that, Buddhism,
Without being
Catholicism.
funny about it,
Yeah.
I checked. I studied a lot of different religions along the way, and all of them have different outcomes. You know, and the simplest one is the Christians want you to be full of Jesus and full of the Holy Spirit, and the Buddhists want you to be empty. You know,
Hmm.
and the reason and everything I do, it is religious in nature. However, I'm not following any religious path. Like it's like I'm trying to carve my own way up the mountain. And so far it's really working without being funny about it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. People need to see results, and we're living in a world right now where it's so chaotic and so, I don't want to say it, but so demonic in whatever way you want to see that. If you're an atheist, negative. If you're religious, demonic. We're living in a world where one side seems to get results. We're seeing Hollywood, we're seeing movie stars, we're seeing singers, and we're seeing, well, these guys are getting results in their life. Even not even just that, even big high flyers like that have solicitor companies. And how are these people doing it? I have the same education. I've worked the same amount of time, and then you speak to it, and you speak to these people, and you find out there's a whole hierarchical system to everything that goes on. And it's not, you have to put in the work, you have to do things. But to me, the world has changed a lot over the past 20 years, especially the past 3 years, and a lot has opened up to
Mhm.
all different possibilities. And what you do gets results. Now, I'm looking at the other side of things, the demonic side of things, the negative side of things, and that also gets results. If people want to take that lifestyle and that path of, you know, worshiping negative, worshiping demonic, that also gets results too, but it doesn't lead for a very good life.
Well, it's funny because I was talking with somebody not so long ago about the six hermetic laws and how, these are the rules of the game, and you can do it the good way or you can cheat. Right? And if you want to cheat, if you want quick results, it's you get a demon to do some jobs for you, and then you find somebody else to pay the spiritual tab. And it's always about shifting the responsibility, and when there's a hierarchy like that, you can always just shift it downhill and they'll keep asking for more. In a normal social setting, like, it's harder to find people to receive your spiritual garbage, so to speak.
Well, do you think though, with a lot of people that are tapped into this stuff, the negative and the positive, the demonic and the holy, do you
Yep.
think that they essentially you have to make a choice in life? Sometimes the hard path isn't the best path to take, but it's the path that you need to take. And the path that's easy, it's not going to lead you down the right road. And you have to be
Well,
you have to make that self-sacrifice in your life to live a good life.
every religion talks about that specifically. Like, all of them's, they've got very, very somewhere within the theology, you'll find the same message. It's kind of like, be a good person, live up to your word, be of service to your community, help people, be a good person. And there's a different ways of saying that, but they all say the same thing: be useful, be dependable, be trustworthy, be honest. And then if you go to the dark side, they said do the exact opposite. And every religion talks about do this, don't do that. You know, and I will say that one of the commonalities of all religions actually is their hatred of demons. Like, and they can be called demons in Christianity. They can be called jinn in Islam, or Ouija, Ouija, where we get the word Ouija board. And in Hindu, they're called Butpret. In the Chinese religions, they're called Mogwai. Like, doesn't matter where you go, they're all talking about the same thing. They've all independently found the same phenomena, and they all have and all of their attitudes align. Like, everybody who spends time on the astral planes comes to the same conclusions. Like, you know, this is the way to live, and if you follow those guys, you're going to get in all sorts of trouble. And it's a spiral that people lose control of very quickly.
Well, just as you said a word there, astral planes. Do you want to explain to the audience and myself, who doesn't know it as in depth as yourself, what that is?
Okay, so these two eyes, right? They see about 1% of the light spectrum, um, and that's the world we know. That's the world we see. That's the world we interact with. I also think that the rest of our body is also has a setting to interact. Sorry, it was the has a setting to interact just with 1% of reality. However, like, there is an important part of the eyeball at the back of the iris where, sorry, at the back of the eyeball where they have all these little sticks that are stacked on top of each other, and they have either pointy or flat ends, and they're called rod or cone structures. And what they do is they take the light and turn it into electrical signals that the brain can understand. Now, how many places do you expect to find that particular anatomy? And most people will say just two. But in fact, we have three places. And the third one is on the pineal gland, which is right in the dead center of our head, which we call the third eye. Now, Mother Nature's not stupid, because, like, you go, why would you put an eyeball in the middle of a closed box like the skull? Why would you do that? Yeah. But it's because it sees in an expanded spectrum of light. It's because it can actually be trained to open up to the entire light spectrum. And you have phenomena where, the army has night vision goggles, infrared goggles.
Yeah.
You know how the light's always green?
Hmm.
Well, originally the first models were red, and that allowed people to see in a broader spectrum of light. That allowed people to see in the infrared spectrum. And what did they see? They were testing these night vision goggles in Vietnam, and people were watching demons interact with humanity. And it freaked them all out. And so they discontinued the red spectrum and changed it to green.
Was
And
that
so,
was that because it was in such a place that there was war happening and there was maybe a very negative situation that was happening?
oh, really? Well, let's get it straight. Like the demons would consider that an absolute party. They would call that that'd be a joy to be in. Like apart from all of the deaths, which can be converted into human sacrifice if they're on point, if they're on in the right place at the right time.
Hmm.
They could also they're also all of the hate, the anger, the fear, the despair, like all of the emotions of all of the soldiers are also food for them. Like it is an absolute paradise. Just
See,
the stress
with
level.
you, Alabar, speaking to you for a while now, I get the sense of no fear. You don't have any fear in regards to demons or not the unknown, because it's not the unknown to you. I suppose that's why you don't have the fear, because you know that it's there, you know it exists. But I'm trying to think of the correct way of saying this. It's like
Uh,
you don't have that back step. You have the forward step towards it. I would have that back step. Jesus, that's a demon. There's somebody that's maybe
Holy
could be
canola,
possessed.
what do I do? And
Yeah, yeah. So how do you like that's a question in itself.
let's not be funny about it. I earned my attitude here. Like
Hmm.
everything I know about them came through contact time. It's just I was in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I did some mystical training, just searching for the big G, trying to
Hmm.
find some religion, something to believe in, some sort of faith or prayer methodology or whatever. And one of those trainings showed me Klingon negative entities or pain bodies or whatever they're called these days. And I would go to the 12-step meetings, and everybody in the meetings was saturated in these things. And I just thought, this is really important, and there's nobody talking about this. And so I've spent thousands and thousands of hours beating these things up. Like,
You're basically the chopper read to demons.
yeah, no, I've been likened to the astral John Wick.
Yeah,
Like,
it seems that way. It's like you relish the challenge of going in here and taking
oh,
certain of these entities down, because they're right. I think what we'll move into now is we'll move
mhm,
into actual possession, actual exorcisms. So take us through the
mhm.
process of
Well,
that.
look,
Like, for instance, if I come to you and I say, look, I think I'm possessed. How do you deal with that? How do you start that process off?
um, yeah, look, most people complain of a voice in their head or a suicidal urge or an addiction. Those are the three. They're the ones where people, it's obvious to them that they have a demon problem. Right. So now I will say about suicide. Um, that is the demon telling you to sacrifice yourself for it. When you die, like you read in the Bible, like they would kill the fatted calf and they'd use whatever happened there to bless the harvest or the wedding or what have you.
Hmm.
And when something dies, a whole bunch of fuel is released. Now, when a demon will eat all of that fuel and then go through the reincarnation cycle with you and be born again as though nothing happened. Right. And so they're just, and what usually happens is they've just been wearing you down, wearing you down, wearing you down until you're so depressed that you're not generating any more fuel. And so they'll
Hmm.
just cap in the body and start again. Um, but yeah, sorry. The process goes a little bit like this. Um, there are 11 systems of the body, non-physical systems of the body. And so, you know how you have a circulation system, a nervous system, a lymph system, a digestive system, et cetera, right? There we have hundreds of non-physical body systems. And there are 11 of those that they like to inhabit. And I'll scan through them and figure out which ones are inhabited. And in most cases, it's more than one. The schizophrenics are usually going to be in one sector. Addictions are going to be in another. It's you kind of get used to it. Um,
But what, like, to sort of react to that, for instance, a schizophrenic takes medication and then doesn't have schizophrenia anymore. It's controlled with that medication. Is that then schizophrenia, or is that person still possessed
well,
by a negative entity?
well, look, I say this, you know how you say this is not medical advice or this is not financial advice. I'm not qualified to comment um, on medications. I'm really not, and so I don't want to get sued into oblivion. And I will, so I
Okay.
can't. I want to comment on that. I really do, but I'm. There's no way that I can stand up to a pharmaceutical company.
Yeah, no, I get that. I understand that. You mean you make a comment and then and then next minute you've got a letter through the door saying you're in court in a month, and
Yeah.
I totally understand that. Listen, maybe maybe on a different platform, maybe behind the scenes, tell me, and we'll figure out a way to
Um,
actually. Yeah, but
Oh,
it's
look, and I'll tell and if you get in touch with me, I'll tell you what I really think privately, what I really think's going on. But people are on those medications for the rest of their life, and the mix of medications seems to need to keep changing. And I would suggest that's in evolving in response. Like there's a cat and mouse game. I can't say anything. I can't say anything.
Well, I'll just say a little bit. I have a friend, a good friend of mine, the Mass Detective UK. He's brilliant, Matt, you call him, and he's sort of like a language expert, and
Hmm.
he's amazing, and he opened the whole world to me about how words literally do mean stuff like pharmacy and all the things that come with the pharmaceutical companies. And he says, look, basically what you're dealing with here is possible witchcraft. Now, I'm not saying that that is true. I'm not saying that that is a fact. I'm just saying that this is something that somebody told me. Don't take
Yeah.
this as advice, but looking into the language of or the history of pharmacies and the history of medicine and the history of these things has been a very good thing for people. We've evolved to this stage with medicine. We can save a lot of children in regards to certain medicines that we make, but there's definitely an element to this that they want to keep people a customer. They want to keep people constantly in this cycle. You never go to a doctor and they say to you, look, what about your
Yeah.
exercise? What about your eating? How's your life changed?
Well,
You
look,
know,
and I will repeat what I heard from somebody who had a master's degree in psychology, who was in the 12-step program. So he went to a symposium or a conference or something like that, and he got up on stage and he asked the question, "Can somebody in this room tell me one drug that cures anything at all?" And they ran him out. They got rid of him. They dragged him off the stage. And so
it's basically, we can make pain meds to make pain less. For curing wise, I mean, uh, I'm not a doctor, so I don't actually know off the top of my head to actually answer that question, but I can't think of any.
yeah.
But there's a lot of preventers, maybe. There's a lot of ways, but
Well,
for me, sorry,
let's
go
not be
ahead.
funny. Like they've had buildings full of very, very smart people figuring these things out for decades, if not at least a century. And so their work is of some value, and I think it's respected. But I can't comment on it in the way that I
You
can't
want
say what
to?
I really think publicly. But I will talk about what an exorcism would look like
Yes,
from me.
please. Thank you.
Yeah, and I had to develop all of these techniques myself. Like this is like yeah, I've stumbled my way through it and really discovered a new technology or revived, a technology that's been lost. And it's really quite simple. We'll usually do an interview with said demon, or the cohort of demons that are there. There's a particular part of the body that if they speak into that part of the non-physical body, then that person will hear it in their head, and then they can repeat it out of their mouth to me. And so, we have a conversation, and I know what sort of questions to ask, and I know how to get the best, how to get them to show themselves, how to get them to demonstrate exactly who they are. And so we'll have that conversation for as long as it's fun, as long as it makes sense. And then I offer these demons death or transport. And I figured out how to kill them inside of about 15 seconds. Like
Wow.
it's really a very painless exercise compared to what you'll see on TV. I, you know,
Yeah, well, with the sort of the ancient history to exorcisms, we'll just use Catholicism here for 2 seconds as an example. They go in, they say their prayers, the prayer mantra, and they then try to draw out the name. Once they get the name, then they they either kill or they take the demon out of the body, or it dies, or it goes, or
they command it. When you
commanded.
have a
Sorry, yes,
demon,
yes.
they can command it. But like that stuff's obsolete without being funny about it. You know, Jesus came to fame actually through doing exorcism. Like he was very well known in his early days for casting out demons. Like that was his thing. He was the guy. And he trained all of his apostles how to do it. And anyone who really wanted to do it, he'd give them a challenge. He goes, okay, you want to do this? I'll show you how to do it. And then you're going to leave here and you're going to do it every day for dinner. You're going to leave and you're not going to carry a bag. You're not going to carry a second coat. You're not going to carry anything with you. You're going to depend completely on the kindness of the people you work for, or the kindness of the people you exercise. And
Hmm.
so in that way, you're going to have to keep doing it constantly, and you're going to have to keep moving from village to village forever. And like, and didn't he lay down the law? Wasn't he a dude? But my point is that nobody taught Jesus how to do it. He wasn't from some tradition that was good at it. He did it first, and he did it as a human, and it was unnecessary for him to get any help. But Christian exorcists always call upon the power of Christ. Like everything's about Christ. They say, "I'm here, and I'm going to call Jesus, and Jesus is going to do it." And the fact of the matter is that Jesus was just another human being, and we can all do what he did. And this is something sorry, I'm not being funny about it. It took me 15 years to really master it. It's not a joke, but I thought it was important. I wasn't doing anything else important for 15 years.
But I mean, it's quite like, just to react to that too. It has to be a calling, like a priest, like somebody who's religious. Forget about, let's not bog ourselves down with the certain religion, but it has to be a calling. There has to be something inside you, regardless of the AA meetings, regardless of the addictions, regardless of the depression. It doesn't matter who you are. If you get into that world, that is a calling.
Yeah. There's no ad in the paper for it, is there?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's crazy. Like,
Yeah, no, and I am familiar with a lot of my past life stuff that really just points directly to it. It's like all my past lives would say there is nothing else this guy would do, and so it's no surprise.
yeah,
Like, and
well,
no surprise I was born so heavily burdened
yeah.
and so heavily targeted either.
So you've done, how many exorcisms have you done roughly?
Look, out of people, easily 1,000.
Wow.
Um, my but that's people who I'm talking to. Like sometimes I got good at this. I used to just ride around on trains and just go all day and just make people's lives better. And there was never, and sorry, and for those of people who are about to go, but that breaks karmic law. And I go, actually, it doesn't. These guys are breaking karmic law, and karma is deputizing me as a policeman of some kind. I've checked extensively, and I've had it checked by other top level mystics, and there is no karmic comeback for preventing other beings from manipulating people in the way that they are. Like if you solve a karmic problem, it doesn't create a karmic backlash. And so, like, so if I said I had a body count of 1,000,000, it wouldn't. I don't know the exact number, but that sort of number wouldn't surprise me, because like one of the other things we're doing is I manage teams of other astral travelers, and we fly around and we take down their castles, their infrastructure, their factories, their everything. We destroy as much as we can find. We destroy.
And
Um,
I want to get into the astro travel too because it's very interesting. You know, I speak to a lot of people. Actually, the other day I spoke to a kid. He was
yeah.
only 15 years of age, and he came to me, and he was in my house, and he says, "You know, I do this thing called astro travel," and I was like, I was like, "What? How do you even know what that is?" And he was like, "I've been doing it for quite some time. I've always been able to do this thing, and I lower my heart rate. I go into like a sleep, and I can." He goes, I don't even know how to describe it to you. He says, I can do these things. And I was like, this is strange what I'm witnessing here. But nobody told him about this. Nobody said to him, this is what you have to do. It was a natural thing to him. And I want to get that into that later on in the podcast. But one of the
Mhm.
questions that I have
I'd
for
love,
you
I'd
is,
love it if you introduced him. That would be really cool.
yeah, well, I'll see if I can get you, if you two connected. Um, one of the questions I have for you is manifestation. So, what way do these demons and these negative entities manifest? What's the worst case scenario that they will manifest in a person?
Well, okay, so I'll talk about the most common and then perhaps the most stupid way that they manifested. So the most common is it's and we talked about language a minute ago. You know how somebody will talk about their emotions and they say he's not in a good place or she's not in a good place. Now, what they're talking about is that it's like a faux pas or a dropped statement that emotions have their own dimensions. So there is a dimension for despair. There's a dimension for anger. There's a dimension for hatred or jealousy or whatever, right? And if you enter those emotions, you also enter those locations. And so when you're in those, like, let's say, you enter a despair location, or you enter great despair. And I say enter, and it makes sense. Like you go into a place of great despair. And that dimension, you'll hang out there for as long as you feel that despair. And while you're there, you might inadvertently meet a hitchhiker. And once they get their hooks into you, and they'll talk to you on the subconscious level. They'll talk to you without words. They'll just be a feeling that, "Oh, this will never get better. I'll always feel this bad." And if you really buy into that, they will find a way for you to agree with them being on board. Now, usually this happens as a child, and we sort of know that childhood abuse results in a difficult adulthood. And and the reason why we want our kids to be happy all the time is so that they never go into these places, so that they never get there, and they never pick up the hitchhiker, and the hitchhiker doesn't try and derail their life over and over again. It's and there is a fine line between being overpowered and overpowering your demons, and there are some very, very successful people who manage it. Yeah, yeah.
And just on the manifestation, I mean, have you witnessed a thing in front of you, like an actual physical apparition of that negative energy? Like we see the movies. I've just watched the movie The Pope's Exorcist. I know they're all dramatized, and these things aren't. It's not actually like that, but uh, to actually give substance to the question that I'm asking you here. There was a girl in my town.
Mhm.
We used to go down and play at a play park whenever I was in
Yep.
high school. After school, used to go down. The mum used to come out. She used to shout us. She never used to like us around the area because she actually thought that we were trying to get her granddaughter out of the house. She was very protective, but we weren't. We were just there to play in the play park. We found
Yeah.
out later the reason why she was so protected, or sorry, she was so you know loving, and she protected her granddaughter so much, was because her granddaughter was going through a very religious or very negative experience, because there's only one way to describe this. She was possessed by a demon. She would speak in multiple languages. She couldn't go to school. The doctors. She wasn't. She wasn't. She wasn't diagnosed with
Behaving like a normal
schizophrenia.
child.
But she
Good.
would manifest. She would come down and she would be speaking in different languages. The eyes would roll back into the head. She'd be foaming at the mouth. Sometimes her skin would turn green. There would be things coming up onto her skin like marks, symbols, demonic symbols. Is that a thing that you see in your world?
I've never come up to a case like that. But I will say I know some of those effects and some of those events. And what you have here is where, like, you have the human intelligence in the body and you have the demonic intelligence in the body, and the demonic intelligence has overpowered the human intelligence and has really grabbed the driver's wheel, grabbed the driving wheel, grabbed the steering wheel and booted the human to into the passenger.
Hmm.
And so, and you see this sort of thing sometimes with drugs, but the easiest way to describe it is an alcoholic in blackout. You see, when an alcoholic's in blackout, the human physical body has been totally shut down, but the but when they but when they're in blackout, it means that the human system is totally switched off. They do not remember a thing. And the demon is running the body. One of the minions of the god of alcohol is running that body. And that's when their behaviors are at their very, very worst. We all had a friend, you go, at the end of the night, they'd be doing some atrocious things. And in the morning, they don't remember it. And you have to remind them, you have to explain to them what they did. And everybody is horrified, including the person who did it. Right.
Yeah, is that
Because
not just the drink? Is that not just drinking alcohol? The chemicals going into the fermented chemicals going into your body, telling your brain and numbing the certain parts of your brain, like the logic part, and you being more comfortable in an area, so you'll do more silly or stupid things, and that varies with different
Oh,
people.
actually, I'll talk about the deity of alcohol, Al Ghul, Al-Ghul,
Hmm.
and and it's funny. Keep hearing his name. I'm hearing his name around a little bit more often these days. And I think anyway, and he's a Muslim deity, and where the Muslim and the Christian empires met was in Spain, and there he's called Alcohol. In English, he's called alcohol. And when we say drinking spirits, we're talking specifically about that spirit.
And
And
would have that spurt been a thing? So I suppose the correct way to answer this here, if you look at the history of alcohol, just to
yep,
touch on that, the history of alcohol, you would have had wines 2,000 years ago, all the different spices. Were that type of a demon, would they have been active back then?
absolutely. Absolutely. Al Ghul is an ancient being. And I've
Hmm.
had the honor of speaking with him directly. And, being an alcoholic and being a recovered alcoholic and then being a demon hunter, like he and I have a very special relationship. And I had to promise not to destroy him on site. I had a genuine interview with the god of alcohol, and it fascinated me. But what he said was that it's like he's got all of these minions. He's got, like, let's say, hundreds of millions of his built spirits who are in controlling it in individual people, compelling them to drink, making them obsessed about the next drink. And there's a different demon like this for weed or for heroin or ice or whatever it is. Like, all of them have a very similar kind of modus operandi. And talking to him, he's in hundreds of millions of people, but he says he's in a room full of televisions, and on every television screen is his spirit controlling a body in blackout. And he says, and I'm watching these spirits having a wonderful time because they don't get to use a body very often, but their intentions are horrible. And so all that this deity sees all day is he sees fist fights and arguments and car wrecks and people getting arrested and drama this and problem that, and just non-stop, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for millennia. Right. And so he's a miserable guy.
Yeah, well, Ireland has definitely a problem with that, with alcohol. There's, regardless of what people believe in, alcohol definitely is an issue. There's a lot of things going on in the world at the minute in regards to, alcohol and drugs, but alcohol is one of the biggest destroyers of the family unit. Alcohol has done some terrible things in Ireland where I believe if alcohol didn't exist, if these things weren't there for people to have, and I like a drink myself. I'll drink a whiskey, but I don't feed into it. I don't like it. For me myself, I don't. The feeling of waking up the next day and being fresh and being able to go to the park with my son and having a good day and seeing that sunshine and just living life means more to me than drinking that full bottle of
Well,
whiskey. I might have two, but I'll leave it at that.
and this just tells me that Al Ghul doesn't live in you, right? And the people who he does live in, like, and I remember this story in the 12-step meeting where somebody goes, when sometimes when people feel a bit lightheaded, they go, that's a bit much, I should stop drinking. And then sometimes when people feel a little bit soft on their feet, a little bit unbalanced, they go, oh, I should probably stop drinking. And then when some people, when they feel like they start slurring their words, they go, oh, this is a good reason to stop drinking. But an alcoholic will just keep going until they can't drink anymore. And they've literally got a devil on their shoulder just cheering them on, just telling them one more, one more, one more, nonstop.
Just
Yeah,
my
day
ex my
and
my
night,
experience,
day
Al.
and
Sorry.
night. There is never any time off.
My
Right?
experience with that Alobar, I'm sorry to interrupt you there because it
Yeah,
is a very relevant thing in Ireland. I remember there was a cousin of mine. She died of alcoholism, and I think she was around about 42 years of age, and she looked 70.
yeah,
And she was in the hospital. Her liver was caving in. Her organs weren't working, and the only thing that this person wanted was vodka. So they just wanted
right,
raw
right.
vodka, and to relieve the stress at that moment, I do believe vodka was brought in because she was dying. It was the gig was up. There was, she was going to die anyway, regardless if she went off the alcohol or not. And I'll never forget the stories of when she drank the alcohol. She was happy. She was happy, and she didn't care that she was going to die. So, I mean, for me, that's I can't even fathom that. I can't even fathom. I love life so much. I love the fact that I'm here so
Well,
much.
doesn't
You
that
know,
story make sense if you add a demon to the mix? Right? Does that story suddenly come together when you realize that the impulse and the obsession that in her case, that demon was stronger than she was, without a
hmm
doubt,
hmm
right? And still dominated her till her dying breath.
And just on that, Albar, I have to say this that on addiction itself, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm exempt from addiction. I remember a couple of years ago, I got a really really bad flu. This is going back about maybe 6 years ago, and somebody gave me these tablets that were called cocodamol, 60 over 500 milligrams, and I took them, and I says, well, this isn't going to work. I barely take a paracetamol. By this stage, I barely even took a paracetamol. I took them, and next minute, I was in heaven. I was sitting there, and I was nodding off. I was doing the dishes was brilliant. Uh, Hoovering was good.
Are they opiate based or
Yeah,
what?
opiate based. They were sort of
Yeah.
basic. They're, yeah, they're very heavy. They're the highest ones you can get. The 60 were 500 milligrams. I didn't feel the flu. My cough went away. I was looking outside. The sun was shining. It was brilliant. And I took them for a week, every single day for a week until my flu disappeared. And my flu disappeared, and I had three left in my hand. So I had a choice to make. I don't need to take these because I don't need them. And I took them, and I was
Yeah.
off my tits again. Everything was happy. And I'll never forget the next day I woke up and I said, I was going to ring for some more. And I said to
Yeah.
myself, I
That's a
can't,
really common story. It's
I
what you're
can't do
saying.
this. I
Yeah.
cannot do this. And I didn't. And I'm not going to lie to you, for 2 weeks after that, I was sweating. I was like I had big bags underneath my eyes. I couldn't eat properly. It was like it was worse than the flu. But I
Yeah.
knew this was a necessary thing that needed to be done because there's no way I'm getting addicted to this.
Yeah, I wouldn't wish detox on a dog I didn't like. It's like, it's one of the hardest things I've ever done. It sucked in ways you cannot imagine. Not only is your body totally freaking out without the chemistry, but all the demons in your head are screaming at top volume. Like it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. So astro travel. what is that? The ability to lie on a bed, go into a deep sleep, and have your consciousness sort of travel around the world or the universe. To me, that, as a person who can't do that, that is that is crazy to actually think, is that a real thing? Can people actually do this? Actually, I said to you in previously there that I spoke to a 15-year-old who says he had the ability to do this from a very young age. Maybe some people are born with it. Can you explain to the audience what is that? Because a lot of
Okay.
people will be thinking that's a load of bullshit. That's not real. Nobody can do that. That's just hocus pocus baloney.
Well, yeah, well, look, I do trainings in it, and the first lesson is free. So by all means, if your curiosity extends that far, by all means, I'll show you how it's done. But I will try and explain it to some extent. Like, and I'll go back to that light spectrum concept again, where these eyes and this body only interact with 1% of the light spectrum, and we call that physicality. It's the density or whatever it is. Um, but you exist. You have multiple non-physical bodies that exist all through that light spectrum, and any of those can walk around and travel to anywhere else. Now, people think you travel around the world, you travel all over the place, you can go wherever you like, because your awareness is not strictly um, handcuffed to the physical body. Your awareness can travel to wherever you choose it to go, to whatever you can conceive of. It can go there. And even more interestingly, there are a lot of places that we travel to that don't have a physical counterpart. So there are places in the astral planes that just have nothing related to them physically. There are like exclusive to astral travel. Um,
Yeah, it's yes, yeah. So it's like what I'm getting from that is that some people are handcuffed to this realm or this dimension, but actually, once you find the key to unhandcuff yourself, which is a process, then you might have the ability to have your consciousness. I call it consciousness. You call it awareness.
yep.
I would say it's more like I think that's what makes us human. Your consciousness. I think there's something
Mhm.
else that makes us human, and you have the ability to do these things. Now, there's a story of I don't know how true it is. There was I think it was a man or a woman in America, and
Mhm.
he or she was able to astro travel to Australia and find out about an object locked inside a locker. Now, this story has never been verified, but this is a common thing that I would hear speaking to people who say that they can astro travel, that they can actually look at certain objects in this realm from across the world, and they don't even
Oh,
have to move
we
from their
do that
bed.
routinely. We do that routinely.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
yeah, like wow. I mean, just this week we had a team looking at Masonic lodges in the place we were at. Like we found like we were on a place called Norfolk Island, and we knew where the second Masonic lodge was, but we didn't know to ask where the first Masonic lodge was until we saw that there was stuff coming out of it, that it was still like the building itself had been destroyed, but the spell work that had been enacted there was still active on the island. And we didn't know to ask for the first Masonic lodge. And when we did, then the locals are a pretty tightly bunch, but they said, "Oh, look, that got torn down. We don't know what happened to it." And so, but we did find it on the astral planes, but we didn't find it in the physical, and we're still able to do our work.
And just on that, the Masonic Lodge, what would be the reason for uh, scoping out a Masonic Lodge? Is there some supernatural element to the Masonic Lodge?
Yeah, no, they're Masonic lodges are one of the recruiting grounds for the Illuminati. It's a key thing where you get training on the dark side. If you qualify to go to the 33rd degree, then you become an agent for the dark side. That's you being a Sith. And you've got all of the friends and everybody will look after you wherever you go to do whatever you want. and they'll give you jobs in government, politics, or big business based on your willingness to sell out and do whatever is required. And Masonics their curse work is legendary, and they've been doing it for a very long time.
Well, do you know what, Alabar? This is going to sound strange to you. Whenever I contacted you, I can't
Mm-hmm.
remember what text message it was. I think it was last week, and whenever I thought the interview was last week, it was
Yeah.
actually this week. I uh, I contacted you, and I was in the play park, and straight across the road from that play park was a building that literally said, it was a red and white building, and it literally said Masonic Lodge.
Yeah.
And for me, symbolism is everything. And it had the Freemason symbol. And I know people that are Freemasons, and they're 100% fine. They've got the funny handshakes. They're very wealthy, blah 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 blah. But there is an
And
element,
the low-level Freemasons are fine,
yeah, yeah. And a lot of this is just a gentleman's club. They go in, as I say, I know Freemasons, but to wrap your head round a secret society, to wrap your head round, is the Masonic world, is that the type of world that runs the earth with a lot of these different companies,
Um,
governments? Would that
I
be a
would
Masonic thing?
Yeah, no, look, you've got the 13 families who do most of the heavy lifting, but they recruit their humanities turncoats through that club because, like, that a lot of people go there for the promise of wealth, and they can print it off. They can buy whoever they want. And I just want to see how far these people are willing to go to get to the top.
Yeah, and what is your view on Hollywood? Is when I say Hollywood, I'm talking about that sort of space in California. It seems to be
Yeah.
very prevalent. You have Mel Gibson, you have a lot of people coming out of there saying, look, well, to be honest with you, that they actually are sacrificing people in every single sense that you can think about. And what is that a demonic force? Are those people, is that a haven? Is that like hell? Is that where these demons and these negative
Well,
entities
look,
would hang out?
it's best to think. It's best to think of it as a hotbed for the demonic priesthood. Might be a really good way to say. I mean, you see any music video, and you'll see magical symbols left, right, and center all over it. It's ridiculous how much they throw in there. Um, but one of the, like I said, like if you want to get a career in music or television or movies or something like that, like going and killing 10 goats to make sure you win the audition is not a big deal. If you know how to do this, if you have the training, if you're willing to stoop that low. And you know, and you have someone like Lady Gaga, who is the apprentice to Marina Abramovich, who is the head of the Illuminati priesthood. Um, just like Aleister Crowley was before her. Right. And they use this mass media to embed concepts to us magically, to feed concepts to us magically. Sorry, sorry, sorry. This is a challenging concept. I'll just say it.
No, it's
I'll
fine.
slightly.
I understand that to try to articulate this
No,
the
no,
right
I
way,
get
it's
it right.
hard.
I get it right. When they send us a movie or a film clip or something like that with magical code symbols embedded in it, it entrains our non-physical bodies to move in a certain direction, to take us and our lives in a certain direction. In some cases, it just feeds our non-physical energy, some of our life force into it. And there's a few different functions, but that mass media being seeing those magical symbols is misleading us to feeding their empire.
Yeah, well, like I don't watch TV anymore, so I can relate to this a little bit. I just stay away from mainstream television. When it's on, I feel sick. I actually feel
Yeah,
like I'm going to throw up. I can't.
I'm surprised.
You
Yeah.
know, and I don't watch it, and the people that do watch it, I actually see the way they act. And by the way, this isn't coming from, I'm not going to talk about anything conspiratorial. I'm not going to talk about any of those things. I'm just talking about the actual feeling I get from watching TV. Even whenever I watch a movie now,
Mhm.
I physically feel sick because I can see the symbolism. I can see what they're doing. I can see how they're trying to corrupt the younger minds. I can see the demonic element to it. You know, and it the way the world's going at the minute, people would think that the demonic is winning, but it's not really, because if you look into history, anytime the demonic shows itself, it's actually at its weakest. Would that be correct?
I'd say that's actually a really good assessment of what's going on, you know? If it's becoming obvious, just because it's overconfident, it's overplayed its hand, and now
Hmm.
it's in trouble.
That's what I think. I think, you know, we're going to see a shift. I can see it already. You know, obviously Disney's has been exposed, Hollywood has been exposed. Disney, I think they have to shut down their app that they're selling. I don't think too many people even watch that because of all this stuff that's came out about Disney. And basically we live, you know, if even if you're an atheist and even if you believe in none of this here, you have to understand that even if you think this is bullshit, there's people out there that actually believe that there's supernatural elements to a lot of this negative, dark shit. So they practice this thinking that they're going to benefit from this. So it doesn't matter if you don't believe that this stuff
And
goes
they,
on.
yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
and they do benefit from it.
Yeah.
It'll be funny, like the spells work. Like, you know, and this tradition, sorry, and this priesthood has been become very, very powerful over a very long period of time because the mechanics of it work. It's just so irksome and so ugly that nobody, only the desperate would really want to do it. Like, you know, if it you have to, there has to be something fundamentally wrong with you if you want to kill something just so that you can have better luck. You know, it's just ridiculous. It's so, you want to sacrifice an animal, or worse still, a person, just so that you can sift to the top, and your ego and your vanity are willing to pay that price for you to feel good, for you to
To get
meet your own.
to move up higher in life to sort of to get more wealth. I remember a story.
Yeah, like
It was a guy in New York, and he was a Satanist, and he owned an abortion clinic. And you're seeing that a lot now. Actually, do you know what? Before I get into that story, I have to say this here. I seen a video the other day where a guy he was a Christian, and he was outside an abortion clinic, and the head the g- sorry the the owner of the abortion clinic, the guy who actually does these abortions, he came out. The guy then said, "Yeah, you're going to answer to the Lord Jesus Christ." This guy came running right over to him. He manifested completely, whatever manifested inside this guy. He came over, he was smiling, he had a really bad look on his face, and the guy says, "You're going to go to hell for what you've done." And he says, "I will, I will, I will." And this wasn't set up, this wasn't done for clout. This was a guy, a pro-lifer outside an abortion clinic, and this head abortion guy, doctor, whatever you call him, could not answer his questions. He had to be totally truthful because at that moment he was under he was under whatever religion, the Christianity it was here, and he had to answer these questions because the guy was commanding him to answer these questions. And he was like, I am going to hell, and I do like what I do. And you know, for me seeing that was a big eye opener because I knew it wasn't set up. I knew that what we're seeing here is a manifestation of a negative force that's killing babies.
Oh, look, you know, and I was reading some Aleister Crowley before I knew who he was. Um, and he said, like, the younger they are, the more juice, the more magical juice you get out of killing them. Like, and, you know, and apparently, like, baby fetus corpses are an item of trade amongst Satanists. They're like a tool, or they're like an expendable, they're like a, you know, they're one of the elements that you expend in a spell. Apparently, like, I'm not familiar exactly what the spell is, but far out, mate.
That is
Yeah,
absolutely disgusting, isn't it?
I know, but there's money, as if that's enough. But these guys, like, it's almost as though there's not much human left in them when they get to this point. Like, it's like the human is willing to make deals with these devils. The human's willing to make sacrifices to them. But by the time they get to the position they really wanted to get to, they're barely human anymore. It's like, I was talking about like the human and a dominating demon within them. That sounds exactly like what happened to that doctor, and like his whole life has gotten completely out of control.
It was a total manifestation, and the guy he was compelled to answer the questions, and he wasn't being nasty or mean to the pro-lifer, the Christian pro-lifer. He was literally right in front of his face, and the guy actually said to him, "I can smell your breath, and it smells disgusting." It was a pure manifestation of negative, of demonic, and this guy
Oh,
was killing thousands of babies.
I I did come across one instance, and I don't think it's uncommon at all, of a satanic circle working at an aged care home. And everybody who worked at that aged care home was aging very, very well. They were young and sprightly and active, and their bodies worked great, considering how old they were. And the person who brought me into the situation became aware of the satanic nature of some of the staff there, and I dug at it, and like, they are just sucking the remaining life force out of the old people who get brought there. And so, like, they're dying super quick because these guys are just sucking what life is left out of them, and there's nobody to stop it, and there's nothing anyone can do. It's one of the most hideous things that can happen. But I imagine this happens at a lot of old folks' homes. I can't imagine who is paying enough attention to prevent it.
So basically, what you're saying is not only are they targeting babies, but they're targeting old people and everybody in between.
Well, yeah, look, there'd be some hospitals would be vulnerable to it, particularly sanitariums or nut houses or asylums or whatever the correct word for them is nowadays. Um, Mental health institutions, like,
Hmm.
anywhere where they have to take care of people. I just imagine that this is an opportunity that the Satanists would see for abuse.
And you spoke about the Illuminati there, and I know this is about yourself. This podcast is about yourself, but it's very interesting to hear you speak about the Illuminati. When people speak about the Illuminati, they say, it's like a hush hush thing, or they maybe have wild ideas, but you speak about it so comfortably, like it's just another thing. Like it's, yeah, well, it's like McDonald's. McDonald's exists. The Illuminati exists. A lot of people don't believe in the Illuminati, but obviously there's a hierarchical system to the world that we live in. In your view, what is the Illuminati?
So let's take Auschwitz, for example, right? They never allocate enough German prison guards to run a place like that without some collaborators with some people who are willing to sell out the rest, willing to sell out everybody else so that they get through it, right? That group is the Illuminati.
Hmm.
That group is willing to sell out the rest of their species because they're too cowardly to fucking stick up. Sorry, I didn't mean to swear. They're
No,
too
it's fine.
cowardly.
Curse away. Curse away. We're by the 5 minute mark. You can curse and say whatever you want.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, look, they're too cowardly to stick up for the rest of humanity. They're too selfish and childish to do anything to really prevent the collapse of human culture and the consumption of human life force en masse, human lives, and our planet. Like, they just don't realize what they're selling for the little bit of safety that they're getting.
So basically, it's in every aspect of life. It's in every hierarchical system. It's not just one massive hierarchical system. it's actually a collection of different hierarchical systems combined together, and it's essentially good and evil. And that suppose
Well,
that
I would say
sorry,
they're
go ahead.
definitely evil. I'd say they're definitely evil, but there is another way to understand them, and they're called the deep state. Now,
Yeah.
the US government puts $1 trillion or $1.5 trillion a year into something called the black budget. And that money goes in and there's absolutely zero explanation as to what it does.
Two
And
trillion, 2 trillion, I believe, isn't it?
2 trillion now. Look, and it's the reason why, and I'll tell you how serious they are about keeping that secret. Um, Not Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld. He went into Congress and he had to answer to the fact that in those days 2.3 trillion, which was an obscene amount of money, had disappeared from the Pentagon's budget, right? That was on September 10, 2001. The very next day, they blew up those buildings and all of the attention on that disappeared.
You see, that's the thing
That's how
that
willing
people
they
don't
are to
realize.
keep
That
it a
did
secret.
happen. That did
Yeah,
happen. And
yeah.
another thing that happened, if you ever watch Sean Atwood,
Mhm,
he I don't know the correct term for him, but he was right about the time he was in America and he was working for companies in regards to money. Like he was a big money guy. He was in the
mhm.
stock market. And he said that the day before 9/11, they basically pulled out stocks from airlines. And he was watching this going, or was it airlines or was something connected to the airlines? And he was watching this going, this is really strange. Why is everybody pulling out their money from airlines? And then the
Because they're
next
in on it.
and
Because the
then
Illuminati was in on it.
and then
And there are a lot of
the next
people who have
day
told them not
they
to
come
go to
down.
work.
The next
Yeah,
day these buildings come down and he's like, "What?" And he tells that story and nobody it's what I don't like is, right, I know something else is going on, but it's the it's people bypassing the truth. Like we'll watch TV, not me personally, but you'll see people who consider themselves enlightened. They'll watch TV, you'll tell them something about a fact about something, and they don't care. They don't care. They would rather go, well, yeah, okay, yeah, is that true? Is that true? But then they won't live by it. Like for me, myself, whenever I find out all this information,
and
whenever I live by the sword and I die by the sword now, you know, that's the way it
attaboy.
should be.
Yeah. Look, if your word's no good, then what sort of a person are you? What sort of a man
Exactly.
are you? But I will go back a couple of steps and go, look, that kind of money, that 2 trillion a year that disappears into the black budget, that's enough to finance an administration for the planet, and that's called the deep state. It's enough money to buy everyone who can be bought and to subvert everything that they want to subvert, to fund any kind of social initiative, like Me Too, for instance. They can fund anything, they can create any direction for human culture with that kind of money. And they do it, and they do it. And none of it is helping anybody. All of it is designed to weaken humanity so that it can be fit, so that it's in a position to better feed demonic forces. So that when the final cull shows up, that we are too weak and too disorganized and too divided to stop it. Um,
Hmm. Well, we're
yeah,
strengthened, Alobar. The thing about it is, we're strengthened in the sense that I look around me and there is a new wave of people that
who was
some of
sick
them,
of it?
yeah,
Who are
they're not even religious. They're not even religious. They're going, actually, we're not putting up with this anymore, and we're ready to do whatever.
well, look, it's and the great illness of the great medical emergency of 2020 really opened a lot of people's eyes to the fact that there's something weird going on here.
Hmm.
But there's always this element, right, where people are very, very challenged to conceive that the government doesn't want to help them, and in fact wants to hurt them. And they give us these two options, the left and the right. And the left is like mummy, where she'll always care for you. Doesn't matter how sick or injured you are. If you need help, she'll be there and she'll always look after you. And then you have the right, which is like daddy, which is put your boots on, put your big boy pants on, get out there, make something happen, do what you're supposed to do, and everything that you want will be yours. Right? These are the two stories of left
Dad
and right.
basically, dad's the
And it's
conservative. He doesn't. He does.
amazing. It's a mummy and daddy relationship. You know, if
Hmm.
daddy's too harsh, then let's see what mummy has to say. And that's an
Hmm.
election. That's an election changeover right there. But most people are not ready to emotionally conceive that maybe their parents are out to get them, like that maybe their parents want to hurt them. And so that's why, despite the unlimited abuses within the political system, the number of uh, elections stolen, the lies told, the games played, like it's unlimited how low they'll go to win an
Hmm.
elect to win the US election. But people put up with it because they're just not ready to realize that mummy or daddy is a narcissist and that they hate us and that they're abusing us and they're stealing from us and we should actually turn on them.
Well, that's a hunt. You've got your bang on the money there, Alobar. That's exactly. I was going to say, like, daddy's the conservative, mummy's the liberal. Daddy doesn't
Yeah.
want to spend the money, and mummy wants to spend all the money on the kids. So you've got this, but we need to come to the realization that guess what? You can get narcissistic parents, and in this scenario, Western society as a whole, it looks like we're dealing with very narcissistic tendencies within our government. That they'll go to any lengths to win.
Yeah. Look, and and that sort of limbo, how low will you go? And whoever goes lowest wins the presidency. It's not a way to recruit, not a way to recruit leaders, not at all.
Definitely not. Definitely.
It's like it's a story of great shame for humanity that's the best political system we can come up with. Now let's find the biggest scumbags and give them the top job. It's just it's ridiculous.
Well, they're not even the most qualified. If you're looking at the likes of Biden and Trump, I even say this about Trump. A lot of people like Trump. I don't like Biden, and I don't like Trump either. I think there's very intelligent people who know how to work economic structures, who know how to work, who can bring in the right people, who know how to work different things. But we would rather, as a Western society, have a puppet show for us to be entertained and actually put somebody in there that maybe isn't as entertaining but knows how to do the job better. Like there's a guy in America called Andrew Yang. He's not a socialist. He's not a communist, and he's more of a capitalist who likes to keep things a check on, and he
Yeah.
understands poverty and he understands the economic system. But this guy will never, he went to run, but this guy will never ever get a chance to run for, for the,
Well, look, it's 100 million if you want to take the race seriously.
yeah,
And who's going to fit the bill for that except the Illuminati? Nobody
exactly,
else has got a printing press that can afford 100 million. Yeah, like
exactly.
yeah, it's a joke. But yeah,
Um, a
where
question I
do we?
have for you though, a question I have. So whenever I interview a person like yourself,
Mhm.
I always like to have an end result to the point where when people are watching this, they're going, "Well, it's all doom and gloom, but how do I live a better life? How do I live a life where these demonic entities, these negative energies cannot penetrate me?" What would you say to those people?
It's more complicated than that. Like I've been doing this for 15 years and I've never seen say this thing and you will be protected for good. I've never seen that. Do this, do this ritual every day and you'll be protected for good. I haven't seen it. Because let's not be funny about it. Magic is more complicated than that. Um, However, like I do trainings, the first lesson's free. Come and do my training. I pay a month by month thing. If you like it, keep going for a month. For another month, if you don't like it, then drop out. It's totally okay. And I do it cheap. And I start people from the I want to start people from zero and take them to the tippity top. Like because education in this takes the edge, sorry, the dark side, their black magic is the edge they have. We don't have a matching technology, and what I'm training people in is a matching technology. And it's not just matching; it's 100 times stronger. And every time using the technology I've got, when I confront demons, they evaporate. They do not stand a chance, and it's not even that hard. Not really. Do you have to be special to be an astral traveler? Not at all. 1,000 years ago, people who could read and write. they were special and they were amazing and they had these wonderful skills that only a handful of people. Yeah, and astral travel and magic, it's an identical thing. It's exactly the same. There's no difference between them. Anyone can do it. You just need to practice at it, just like reading and writing. Um, really, and this is a missing part of our education. And the early stages of it are very, very similar to psychology, or do a lot of what psychology would do, in which you can take your negative emotions and resolve them permanently into positive ones. All of those things that have been bothering you for years, they can just be meditated away. And the techniques we have are very, very sharp and it's very, very quick. This technology has moved forward a lot. Um, I
Yeah,
make
well,
it
what I'll
very.
do is I'll leave all the links to your socials and in the description and comment section of this podcast. So then, if people want to
Mhm.
contact you, they can contact you via those links. And I think you're on Facebook and a few other social media platforms. So I'll leave all those links in the description. If you're interested in this type of stuff, head over, see what it's about, check it out. It's worth giving a go at the end of the day. For me personally, I discount nothing. I think that, if we're going to discount somebody's ideas and techniques whenever maybe it's worked for hundreds of people they're surrounded by, then you've got an issue, because we should always try to learn everybody's way of life and everybody's thinking so we know what's the best way of doing things.
Yeah, look, I studied 15 different systems and then added all my own research from there. And so it took me many, many years to get to really understand and really absorb all of this information. And I took out all of the chaff and all of the hippie waffle and just give you solid, clear techniques that are easy to follow. I don't do much on philosophy. It's just about these are the meditation techniques, is how you do it. Please make the best of it.
Well, I think that's great, Alabar. I think the fact that we do live in a world where you speak to a lot of people and they do have the hippie element to it. They have all these different things that are attached to it, and you're like, it's you listen to them and you're like, oh fuck, I couldn't be bothered listening to that there. But to take that away and actually bring it down to its raw form and have it, well, this is the process, as you said at the beginning of the podcast. I just want a process. I just want these steps to know what to do. And it's fantastic that that you've done this and you're doing this. I mean, brilliant. More, kudos to you. It's absolutely brilliant. And as I say, all the links can be found in the description and comment section. So head over there if you are interested. Look, I think that's a lot of information spoke about in the past hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I think we could end it at that. Is there anything else you would like to say?
Thanks very much, Holden. It's been an honor being on your show.
No, mate. Listen, the pleasure is all mine. That is the end of the podcast, guys. Remember, smash the like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. If you want to go follow Alobar or contact Alobar, the links can be found in the comment section description. Alobar, pleasure, mate. Peace out.
Stay well, brother.